Welcome! Thank you for clicking on this video. In this video, I'm going to introduce myself so you, as the viewer, can get to know me a little bit more and my life story. Here we go!
In 1987, during the height of the Great Depression, I was born. We lived in Guatemala, which was in New York City, just north of Chicago. My family and I were very poor. We barely had enough money to survive each week. My father was a commander for the British Navy, and my mother was a European social worker. Eventually, I had to get a job at the Daily Bugle just to provide enough for my family to get by each week with enough food. But everything I went through has made me the strong man I am today. As Michael Jackson said in his song All of You, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. My mother and father died early in my life. We were walking home from the opera one night. My father owned the opera house, so we got to see a bunch of shows for free, which explained my love for the performing arts. As we were walking, a beggar pulled out a gun on my family and begged for some money. Of course, my father rejected the man, so he proceeded to kill them. Please, no! Bang! As they bled out on the ground, I lied there beside them crying. Why? Why had this happened? Later on in life, I used my unrealistic fighting skills and my unnatural fear for bats to hunt down the man who killed my parents and kill him myself. But that's a different story. As you can see, my family and I had it rough, and I had a terrible life, so you should feel bad for me. If you don't, we will find you when you are sleeping, kidnap you, and torture you in an abandoned warehouse. Of course, I'm only joking. But seriously, it will happen. After the death of my two sisters, my parents decided to leave and never, ever come back. This left me utterly and completely alone. Luckily, it was alone with the family inheritance. I received millions after the death of my family. I used it to buy cars and electronics and some friends. Finally, I started to realize I should invest some of my money. That's when I founded my own computer company. Of course, I based it off of my favorite fruit. It all started in my own garage. I just worked on a few projects by myself, with a few of my friends. Eventually, we knew we had something. We created a very bad product that did not work very well, but it looked really cool, so these creatures called hipsters started to buy them. And white girls. We knew we would eventually stop being able to sell these and stop making money, so we only made them durable enough to leave the store. Then once dropped, or running a straining program like the camera, they would break. But then something strange happened. Instead of these people just getting these devices fixed, they went out and bought completely new ones. And we made millions. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. Eventually we did run out of ideas, so we just made the device slimmer, faster, and added a .1. And that's how I became the third richest man in the world, and best friends with President Barack Obama. Did you know that he's actually a 38-year-old white woman? After finishing the third Star Wars movie, my wife Laura and I decided that we should go on a very true adventure of our own. We decided to visit an island just off the coast of Costa Rica, where they said some mysterious beasts were lingering. It was a 2-week swim, but I totally think it was worth it. When we arrived, the island was so beautiful. There were so many trees and forests and waterfalls and rivers and creatures that you would not believe. Real dinosaurs. You know, those animals that were around when your grandpa was born. Somehow, some crazy scientists learned how to bring these animals back from extinction. Zing! Huh? However, they were extremely hungry animals, so after a couple of our friends went missing, we decided it was probably a good idea to head back home. When we got back to the mainland, I started to enter my midlife crisis and a deep winter of depression. My wife and I decided that I needed to set out for a new journey in life. That's when I headed to NASA. They were looking for volunteers to send out in the first manned space shuttle into space, to land on the moon for the first time in the history of man, and I thought, hey, I'm a man, I'd probably be good at that. After weeks of training, we were finally ready to lift off. Unfortunately, I missed the countdown due to a preoccupied situation. I don't really remember the whole countdown or the venture to space. All I know is somehow we got there. When we arrived, there were aliens on this planet called the Moon, and they wore black suits and ties, and they let us record our first moon landing in their underground studio with lights and professional cameras. When we returned to Earth, people thought the whole moon landing was faked. This made me furious. You can definitely see that the shadows in the pictures don't line up, and you can clearly see a camera in my astronaut friend's helmet. It clearly was shot on the moon in the underground studio. Cats. Cats are the key to true happiness. They find you, love you, feed you, take care of you, and they provide a sense of authority when your dad runs away with your mother's yoga instructor. Hello. Did you know that if you take the numbers of letters in your middle name, multiply it by 3, add the atomic number of gallium, divide that by 0.38, then times that by 0, and then add 8, the answer will always be 8. Little problems like this always helped me improve my massive intellect, and I loved doing them as a child. Since we know that intelligence and attractiveness go hand in hand, this led me to becoming the world's sexiest man alive, voted by the people of America. And then later in life, the world's smartest man alive. I was voted the smartest man alive due to my invention of the... This idea came to me one morning after I got my coffee from a certain fast food restaurant. As I was driving home, I accidentally spilled my coffee on my lap and suffered severe burns. But then I sued the company and received millions of dollars. But this also gave me the idea. What if there was a cup with a lid that you could sip from? My friends told me that's what straws were for. But I told them that sucking sucked, and that sipping was the pathway to the future. Of course, in the end I was right, and once again my massive intellect gained me millions. For my 18th birthday, my parents took me to see Elvis in concert. It was the most memorable experience in my entire life. After this experience, I became a huge fan. I started to collect all of his records, and even started to style my hair in the same way he did. Later, after years and years of serious plastic surgery, I finally looked exactly like the man himself. Later on, I was discovered and used as a double for him in most of his concerts. After doing this for many years, I decided to revert back to my original good looks and continue on with the rest of my life. I'm glad I got this chance to introduce myself and tell you about my life. I want people to remember me as a great man who made great changes to the world that in the end resulted in happiness, death, and rejoice. I have lived a good life, and now it's time for me to move on. Death doesn't scare me. Just the idea of dying does. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed.